Good morning, class, and welcome to our interview for this week. Today I'm here with Brother Jacob Fleming, who is the executive assistant to Pastor Chapel here at Lancaster Baptist Church. So that means he's over a lot of different areas, his fingers in a lot of pies. And he does an amazing job with some of the events around here. And Lancaster Baptist Church is an amazing church to be gleaning information about event evangelism. So, Brother Fleming, as we start, would you be willing to maybe elaborate on that introduction and tell us about your ministry role here at Lancaster Baptist?
Sure. And Malachi, thank you for leading the class, and thank you for allowing me to come on. And you said before we started recording here, glean from your wisdom. Well, I'm not sure how much wisdom you're going to be able to glean from what I do here at Lancaster Baptist Church, but I hope it's a help to you. So the executive assistant to Pastor Chapel would help with overseeing some of the assimilation process. We'll talk more about that today, but that's the heartbeat of the church. That's really reaching people, teaching people, connecting people, and getting them to take a step of commitment. So I oversee the heartbeat of the church with the assimilation process. Inside of that would be your Sunday first impressions, your follow-up, and also your discipleship. And then I also oversee the young adult ministry here at Lancaster Baptist Church, the 18 to 35-year-olds. So I have a passion for our generation to just love and follow Jesus. So that's what I do.
Awesome. Yeah. So with that, I know you just mentioned a word, assimilations, and that can be a big word, a daunting word.
Yeah.
What does that mean, and how does that tie into events? What role does that play with an event?
Yeah, well, I think you've been speaking with other pastoral staff of like outreach, going out into the community and reaching people. That's part of it, and of getting people to your church. But now, properly stewarding the gifts that God brings to you. That's really what assimilation would be, of retaining some of those visitors that God sends your way. I'm going to use the word gift and guest interchangeably here because I really do believe that a guest is God's gift to the church, and seeing souls come in and the proper stewardship of that. So Malachi, I can go really high, 60,000 foot view of what that means, or I can dive into the weeds. Which one would you like for me?
Let's go a little lower.
Okay, let's go a little bit lower. So, do you want me to start all the way with like first impressions of the church? So, because that kind of ties into it some.
Kind of start with before an event takes place. I know assimilation is what to do with the visitors once they arrive. Mm-hmm. But even before an event, I know there's steps that you take to be ready to welcome them. So what about before an event? How do you lead into assimilation? Mm-hmm. And then what do you do during it? What do you do after it? If you can kind of walk through really those three steps of assimilation of those visitors who show up to your event, getting them retained in church, getting them connected to the church and connected to Jesus Christ.
So before the event, okay, let me pedal back here a little bit here. When it comes to a first-time gift showing up at your church, first you want to be prepared with. I'm gonna dive into some first impressions. I don't think you can separate the two. Right. I'm gonna dive into some first impressions things. You want to be prepared for guests. When my wife and I host in our home, my wife's an amazing cook. Have you been over to our home yet? We need to get you back over.
It was someone else's home.
We need to get you back over and have some of her good cooking. But we prepare. We clean the house. We prepare a meal, and we get things in order because we're expecting some guests. Well, the church needs to approach it the same way. They need to be expecting. Why would God send you any visitors if you're not expecting visitors? So they need to be preparing for guests. How do we do that? One, there's the first impressions. We have refreshments, we have greeters, we have sign greeters with signs, and we've also prepared guest tables, much like this table right here. If you, here, let me hold it up here. A round table, we call it cocktail table, just a tall table that sits in our lobby. We have tables in our lobbies that have proper signage that says, "You are welcome here." First time gift for those that are in attendance. So when a guest is coming, we're making them feel welcome. Hey, it's great to have you here. You never want to approach a guest with, "Hey, is this your first time?" Because it might be their second time. And now you've just shown that you didn't recognize them the first time. But the one way to interface is, how long have you connected here at Lancaster Baptist Church? And then that lets them say, "Today's my first day." Yeah. "Oh, great. I thought I didn't recognize you. Come this way. Let's get connected to a table. You want some refreshments?" So I'm kind of walking you through the process here. We're ready for them inside with a gift and also what we call the connection card. The connection card, and I want to encourage you students to email Malachi. I'll get you a copy so you can send it to the students of what our connection card looks like. But it has basic information, name, number, email, address. Life stage is vital because we'll get to the follow-up in just a second. But knowing, okay, this person is 22 to 25 years old, they marked that they're single or they marked that they're married, it helps you with the follow-up process. But this connection card is what we're trying to encourage them to connect with us about and to give us some information about how they even heard about the church. So that's the the starting of the event, leading into it, preparing for your guest, expecting guests to come, but when they arrive, what do they do? Well, we try to get them to that guest table where they're interfacing just like this with a gift in the connection card. So 2 things that I would say here. Never ask a guest, is this your first time? That's a bad way to start. How long have you been connecting with our church is a great way to start. And then when it comes to the connection card, I like to say, we like to connect with those that are connecting with us today. Would you mind connecting with us through this card? And most people are willing to give at least name, number, and address.
And
like
the
that.
gift there helps. You require them to fill out the card to get the gift.
Yeah, turn the card
correct?
in, and then they get the gift.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we also place those connection cards. That's a very key point of assimilation. No connection card, no information, nothing to follow up on. The
Right.
connection card's vital. We also have that in the back of the seats of the auditorium, so it's easy access. So sometimes you hit them on the way in, sometimes you hit them on the way out, and sometimes you hit them when they're right there in the service filling it out. But the connection card is pivotal. And it's been said, you need to touch a heart before you ask for a hand. You want to make sure that your guests that are showing up, it's not just, okay, they're already feeling like, should I have even come? They're already feeling, okay, church is new. What's in this for me? If they're already wondering what's in this for me, and then we're going to ask them to give us more of themselves, they've already come, and now you're asking for information. Touch that heart before you ask for that hand, and be willing to encourage them, and be discerning to not just say, hey, give us your information right now. You're on our church. No. Just give it some time, encourage them, show them around, get them seated. If you don't have the information by then, well, follow up with them afterwards. But touch the heart before asking for a hand. So I know I'm kind of shotgunning some there, but that's something that I'm passionate about here at the church of loving people and getting them connected.
Okay. So was that as far as you want to go with first impressions and assimilation, or was that a step in it? You want to go further?
That's the easy part.
Okay, that's the easy part.
That's the
Got
easy
it. Got it.
Yep. So first question on your next quiz. The easy part is the first part. Which is just the first impressions and making people feel welcome.
And you guys, he mentioned a connection card there, an information card. You guys are going to need to have one of these in your event planning project. On one of your requirements there is that you have one of these cards that you've developed that you're going to use at that event. They can be somewhat event specific. If we're having a college event, we have one called The Hunt, and I know that's been referred to previously in interviews. But the connection card is going to look a little bit different than one that we hand out during the service.
I'm talking people through coming to a church service right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking of maybe like an Easter weekend or something like that. If we're talking about events, you're exactly right. That card might look a little bit different, like The Hunt or whatever. But you can put a title at the top for whatever event that you're talking about.
So let's say we've had an event. There's some other people who really planned the nuts and bolts of the event, and you've planned to have some people there to greet them, to get them a gift, to touch their heart, and then to ask for a hand. And now you have this series of connection cards, and the event was this last Sunday. We had our big event, let's say. Now what are you going to do? How are you going to direct to make sure that we're connecting with those best?
Excellent. Malachi, that is not a card with a name and number. That is a soul that'll go to heaven or to hell. That's right. We're not talking about pieces of paper. Hey, come to our church and let's get your information. Okay, we want them to come to our church. We want their information. We've already talked through some of that. But really at the baseline of all this, the foundation of all this, is that well, the Son of Man came to seek and to save those that are lost. And this connection card is just a tool for us to use to tenaciously follow up with people. I've been with a person, I won't say his name, but he filled out the connection card, and on the back of our connection card, as you'll see, it says, what am I interested in? And it gives you next steps. And some will say connection group, some will say serving, some will say membership, baptism, or salvation. And this one person in particular checked the salvation box. Well, a few days later, as I saw that on the card, I followed up with him at a coffee shop and led him to Christ.
Amen.
That's the foundation of all this. So great, we have all these cards. You must steward tenaciously. You must properly, even in the midst of a service, sometimes it can get a little bit hectic in your lobbies. You don't want to leave these cards out on tables or on counters. You want to put them in a drawer where no one's going to look except the assimilation pastor or the assimilation secretary that's going to type this information up in just a second. But store those cards safely, and then know exactly where you can grab those once church is over. You're going to take that connection card, and what we do every week of our lives here at Lancaster Baptist Church is type it into what we call a stat sheet. That helps us to see the big picture. How'd we do yesterday? If you aim at nothing, you hit it
Every time.
Every time. How'd we do? So the stat sheet lets us know, okay, we had 25 visitors, we had 18 salvations, and we had 6 baptisms, whatever it was. Oh, okay, so that gives you the high end. But here, okay, we're 25 visitors, but I don't want a number. I want to see people. I want to see numbers. I want to see addresses. So this stat sheet, which is an Excel sheet, just something that you'd find on a normal computer, would have name, number, address, life stage, email, and it might even have a note beside it. Maybe the person left a prayer request, or maybe somebody met this person on Sunday morning and wants to follow up with them personally. We're going to take this stat sheet, and then we're going to, it's normally myself and Brother Furso. I think Brother Furso's been on already.
Yes, sir.
Normally every Monday, Brother Furso and I sit down with this stat sheet, and we look name by name at who we're going to assign stewards to. Now, a steward in your church is a core member, a core leader of your church that knows how to lead somebody to Christ, that knows how to follow up and ask good questions. Those are stewards. You can train stewards. Every church might be a little bit different. It might be the deacons in one church. It might be the pastor, because it might be a smaller church where it's just the pastor that's doing all the follow-up. But the stewards are now going to be assigned the gifts. God brought us gifts. Now we're going to steward these by following up with them. And so every Monday we're going to assign, okay, Joe Smo, he visited our church. Okay, well, he's 22 to 25. He's single. Oh, Brother Fleming can take that one. And then let's just say Emily visited our church. She's got a family. Let's give that one to Toby England. He's got a couples class. So we're going to start dissecting name by name of stewardship, of stewards to follow up with those people. That's one level. That's a Monday assignment. Those cards are also on the stat sheet. These people are automatically going to receive an email from our church on Monday as well. So they visited on Sunday. On Monday, they're getting something in their inbox. On Monday, I'm assigning stewards to the names. And then those visits, of course, will take place on maybe a Tuesday or Wednesday or a Thursday. And that's the level. How much more do you want me to go?
Yeah, that was great. I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Sometimes I can get mumbling a little bit here.
No, that's great. It's basically a prospect list for the entire church. And I know I've had the system, we have a system where you can actually place those prospects on, as you call them, stewards, I believe, on stewards lists. And right. I've had young single adult guys show up on my list before. And they've been some of the best connections I've ever made have been from these that have been put on my list by Brother Fleming and by Brother Furso with this. So it's a great way to make sure we're catching everyone and no one's really falling through the nets.
What Malachi is mentioning, we call it the sweetheart list. And it's something that our church has developed where, okay, we have this stat sheet, cell sheet, names, numbers. We're assigning now these names, and oftentimes I do give you a prospect to follow up on. When I turn that stat sheet back in, let's say I had 25 visitors, well, I better have 25 stewards. The assimilation secretary would then know to use the Sweetheart List portal, which I have the oversight of. I see, oh, Malachi has 3 people in his prospect list, or he was assigned one this week, but he hasn't made contact yet. Or he visited and he made a call and, he led him to Christ. I'll see all that on the dashboard of the assimilation manager. But the assimilation secretary will then input all that information and assign to the steward. So you're not going to necessarily maybe hear from me, but the assimilation secretary will say, Malachi, you've got a new prospect in your Sweetheart List. And let me just say this about the Sweetheart List. If God's going to bring you a gift to your church, there better not be a whole week go before that person has a knock on their door, a text on their phone, a call from the steward. We've got to make it a first priority. Even in the busiest of seasons, every visitor must get visited before the following Sunday, because we want to know where they're at. Are they saved? Are they baptized? Did they like it? How'd they hear about us? There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So.
I know, kind of on a different note here, you also work with the young adults of the church, and I know you teach my connection group.
Yeah. He's an okay member. He does okay. No.
kind of a large Sunday school with a specific age range, and within that, there's often some other events for the connection group, and you're often integrating the young adults in your connection group into evangelism. And what steps as a leader of a young adult group do you take to help encourage them into evangelism and participating in these events? Because I know most of the people in our connection group are helping in some way whenever we have an event. So how do you encourage that?
So, constantly keeping it in front of them. And also, life's journey, you cross paths with so many people. Keeping evangelism in front of people in the sense of like, hey, you don't have to go a day without inviting someone to church. Now, you should have a set time of when you go out and knock some doors. But trying to equip people with class cards to say, hey, the cashier at the grocery store, invite them to church. The person that you met at the gas station, hey, invite them to church. Just your whole life, just keeping it in front of the class and getting people involved in a daily basis is a healthy practice. The outreach pastor, Brother Furso here at Lancaster Baptist Church, he ought to be, really building the teams and getting people to our special outreach breakfasts or to our special events like our Love Works like we've done in the past. But as the leader of the young adults, keeping it in front of them, and I don't do so much of the organizing of the outreach, but making sure that, well, 1, I'm there, and then 2, encouraging those that I'm leading are coming with me. A good sign of leadership is to look behind to see if anybody's following you.
Right.
And I want to make sure that I've got a few people following me, because leaders know, go, and show the way. And so I think the outreach pastor, if he's done it the right way, which we do, we have a great outreach pastor with Brother Furso. He plans the event. Well, leaders like myself want to just keep it in front of those that I'm leading, and then if I'm a good leader, they'll follow. They're supposed to come with me.
Right. And I know something that's often encouraged here is if you're a faithful soul winner, you've got it going out, find someone who isn't and bring them alongside you and show them how to go. And I know I'm meeting with someone here in about an hour who we're going out to make a visit that was on my prospect list. And he was someone who hadn't been soul winning before, but was in the connection group and wanted to know, what's this all about? And so being willing to, never being above. He said, go show, what was the first one?
Know,
go, and show. And with that, the showing part is being willing to go with someone who may not be as experienced, whose company you might not be as thrilled to be with, but showing them, hey, this is what outreach is about. Thank you for your time here. As we kind of wrap up the interview, do you have any comments you feel or key principles you feel would be important to share with the class?
Yeah, I was going to say thank you for letting me close in that way, because I was going to close with this anyway. But some maybe would have frequent questions about how frequently do you follow up with a person? Because sometimes you'll get somebody assigned to you, or you'll have a visitor come to your church, and maybe they were maybe their arm was twisted on the way in by maybe a spouse, or maybe there was a coworker that said, "Hey, if you don't come this Sunday, I'm going to fire you." Not quite, not quite. But your follow up, how frequently and how often, to what extent do you follow up with every visitor in your church? Well, let me encourage you to prioritize those that show potential and that want to be followed up with. There's some visitors that come to our church. Let's just pull Christmas. They'll come because it's Christmas. That's what you do at Christmas time. But they have no desire to come into a relationship with Jesus Christ. Well, we're going to leave them on our system, and they might get an email around Easter, because Christmas and Easter, or maybe that's their thing. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to invest as much of my time in someone that's told me, "I'm not interested in your church," but there might be 2 or 3 other people next door to them, or another person on my prospect list that is begging for Bible answers. So you kind of have to discern. I absolutely hate making people inactive on a prospect list. I want everyone to be active. I want everyone to be in church. I want everyone to love Jesus and make steps of commitment. The assimilation pastor should have those desires. But at the same time, I also want to be wise with my time, because I have the same 24 hours that you do. And following up with those that want it. You want to find those that want it. That's why it's helpful to log that information in your system. And then those that don't want it, well, God knows how to work in their hearts and bring them back. So, right. And then there's some that visit our church that already have a church home. Well, I'm going to log that, and I probably won't follow up with them as much, because I'm looking for those that want to come take steps of commitment towards Christ.
Right.
So.
Right.
Well, there's a lot more that I could say, but I'll let you end it. So
awesome. Thank you for your time, Brother Fleming. And class, I know he talked about providing that connection card, and we'll have that in the files section or in this module of Canvas for you to view and see what Lancaster Baptist Church uses as a connection card for those gifts that God is sending to us. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your week. God bless.